What's up, fantasy champions? Spotlight Sports Network is excited to tell you about an amazing deal from Thrive Fantasy, your place for daily fantasy sports and esports. Right now with promo code SS Network, Thrive Fantasy will match up to $50 of your first deposit. So go to thrivefantasy.com and sign up now with promo code SS Network. That's thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network. Do you like the Oakland A's? Are you a fan of the Golden Knights? Do you love the Los Angeles Chargers? Well then, my friend, you're in the right place. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show with your host, Jake the Snake SIlva, brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network.
Well, all right, folks, we are live in the 702 in Las Vegas on a Wednesday night. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening today. We're live on all platforms, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Go like, follow, subscribe, and hit the bell button for all latest notifications on all past shows that we also have here on the Spotlight Sports Network, and also keep you up to date on future shows as well. So, Wednesday night, guys. There's been a lot going on all throughout the week. And by the way, this is Super Bowl week. We got the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Can't wait for the game to start sooner. There's been a lot of storylines. And, of course, too, we'll be talking a lot more about just what's been going on with the NHL season as well. We've had great content for Monday night with Jeremy Case. It was fun. It was great. Also, too, talking a little bit about baseball, because right now there are a bunch of things that are happening in Major League Baseball as of now that kind of are raising up a little bit of concern. So appreciate all of you guys joining in here tonight on Wednesday. I just absolutely love it when I, present myself, look good, look professional, and giving good quality content to everybody here on all of our social media platforms. We're here for you 24/7. What's going on, BL? So, all right. So let's talk about this Super Bowl real quick. So you got Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and so many others. And then you got the other side where you've got Tampa Bay with Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, and a bunch, there's a mixture of youngsters and veterans. And it's going to be a hell of a showdown. I'm going to be giving my score prediction as well because throughout this whole week, we're going to have at least a bunch of stuff, but we're getting geared up for this weekend. And by the way, for those of you who are asking the question, if I am going to be commentating that game, well, I got the privilege from Spotlight Sports Network that I will be doing the live play-by-play coverage of the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Super Bowl 55. I think it's going to be fun. These are always... I love going to a lot of sporting events, and I love doing where, you see some of the activities, you see a lot of just, the fun stuff that they offer up at every special event. I've been to so many of them, countless ones in my lifetime. A lot of them were basically semi-pros, minor, and then some of them were actually major ones. And I've enjoyed it. But this setting this weekend in Tampa, something that have never been done before, where you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the Super Bowl and they're representing in the Super Bowl. And Tom Brady, as much as we like to talk about his greatness, and as much as we like to talk about all of the accolades, all of the awards, the achievements, and so much more, nobody looked at Tom Brady as a special type of quarterback. Nobody did. Not athletic, not a guy that has these strong throwing arms like we watch Mahomes and Herbert and Josh Allen and Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson. But what he does have is he has instincts. And he does have a precise look at a playbook. Once he breaks it all down, that's where he's very lethal. Doesn't have to be as athletic. We see that. Doesn't really run too much out of the pocket. Doesn't really create space like we see some of these youngsters do. And then in the end, as long as he gets the job done, get the first downs, provide pressure against the defense, and score points. Those are some of the most legendary moments we've watched Tom Brady play. And we've seen it over and over again. We've seen it in so many Super Bowls. And now this is the 10th Super Bowl that Tom Brady will be representing in. And out of all the years he's played in the NFL, I don't think this is a storyline we've ever seen in a long time. Think about it. When Joe Montana, when he won his Super Bowls in San Francisco with Bill Walsh and with Jerry Rice and with Roger Craig and with so many other great players, when the time was done, he goes to Kansas City, tries to push for a playoff run, but was not as dynamic. Tom spent 20 years in New England. Okay. And what's kind of the crazy thing, and a lot of people are starting to recognize and they're starting to realize that. What's going on? What's going on, Official Sean? What's going on, Key in the building? If you guys haven't done so already, definitely like, subscribe, and hit the bell button. If you are diehard Philadelphia fans, Flyers, Sixers, Phillies, and of course the Philadelphia Eagles, Key in the building's got you covered in all sorts of Philadelphia sports. Definitely go and check her out. But this is something that we look at with Tom. Out of the 20 years he's played, winning 6 Super Bowls with New England, and a lot of people will say, well, who was this system? What was this system all about? Well, we've seen this all this year. Now you've got Tom in the Super Bowl, and I think people can argue this. New England made the greatest mistake. They made the greatest mistake of letting the GOAT walk, but here's the problem. New England whiffed on wide receivers. They whiffed on a bunch of key players, but yet somehow, some way, they always seem to have the top 10 defense. They always seem to have the top 10 offensive line. And it kind of seems like their structure's kind of put in place. But that's not the casing. The casing is Tom wanted better. And New England, out of all those years, couldn't do it. It was like a complete roadblock. Listen, we respect Bill Belichick as much as we do. Greatest coach in the NFL. I think right now with what we're looking at with Andy Reid, I mean, it's a match made in harmony with him and Patrick Mahomes. But Tom, as of today, Tom's trying to prove one thing. It's not just a respect thing, but I think it's a reminder. And it may hurt a lot of New England fans. What's going on, Luke? But the point of it is, Tom spent all of his years in New England grinding out game after game, play after play, situation after another. And had given exactly New England their culture. But then once Tom left the building, it was different. You saw exactly how the culture had shifted. You had seen exactly all the changes that have happened since Tom left the building. And here we are in Tampa. He's loaded with wide receivers. I'll argue that offensive line looks fantastic. I mean, that draft pick, Tristan Wirfs, that kid, is ridiculous. The kid's strong. He's, built like a wall. By the way, the defense kept getting better and better. Levante David, Devin White, Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul. But this is interesting. This is an interesting storyline. And I don't even think this is one we'll ever forget, to be honest. You know, you're looking at the quarterback who's done it all in 20 years. But here's the other thing. You're also looking at the team that they're rising to their potential. It's Kansas City. And this is where I'm going to end up shifting to this in a second. But I just look at it like this has been quite a run for Tom. And Tom and what Tampa has done successfully, they've shifted and they've buttoned themselves up. Where Tom, the second he came into the building, let's get to work. That's what it was all about. And he did this without any OTAs, without any practices, and still managed to do so good that now Tampa's in the Super Bowl. And you've watched that late in the season. The wide receivers, every single one of Tom's weapons were clicking at the right time. And that was what we all anticipated when the season began. And this is what it was going to look like. We didn't expect, because a lot of us had fantasized about, with Peyton Manning, with Drew Brees. We fantasized this so much. Because after Peyton left Indianapolis, and Indianapolis said, we want to start our future bright. There's a kid out in Stanford named Andrew Luck. We're going to end up going with him. And we're respectfully parting ways. There was no disrespect. There was none. I think the unfortunate part is Peyton just got hit with a neck injury. But even after that, going to Denver, he had a healthy offensive line. He had an awful lot of weapons, and he had a defense. In Tom's case, he was still a winning quarterback. But the only problem is that the relationship kind of seemed like it was breaking in different ways. And that's why he made the decision that he did. Because there was so much that was going on in his personal life, within the organization. And it just kind of seems like we get to this point now. And Tom's made it here. It's interesting. It's really interesting. And so this is where it's going to shift to this way. To Kansas City. And I know a lot of people about there. BL, I know you feel kind of hard about this. So do I. As in-division guys, this is what it looks like with Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes, there's no argument to him. He's great. He's fantastic. The weapons around him, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and a bunch of others, they're really good. And Kansas City and what they've done over the past couple of years, and they took a risk at Patrick Mahomes. After letting go of Alex Smith, Kansas City, Brett Veach, they've all trusted the entire system and the entire process of what Kansas City was trying to do. And they had the pieces in place, but all they needed was just someone that was dynamic. And the second Patrick Mahomes entered the building and he started, people couldn't stop ranting and raving. But here's the other thing, because a lot of people kind of fail to realize this. Sometimes I hold myself accountable to this too. But remember the year in his very first official starting year, he threw for 50 touchdowns, less amount of picks, and the kid was unbelievable. You just couldn't stop watching him. The last time he faced against Tom, that was in the AFC Championship for Super Bowl 53. But yet, a lot of people will say it was a lot of controversy. Because I'd say this, if D Ford did not cross that line, that was a game changer. And that's what gave New England that momentum and Tom that momentum. But in the end, it was opening a pathway for Patrick Mahomes. It was. But even in the end, Kansas City, they're such a dynamic offense. It's like there's no kryptonite to them. There is no weakness. It's so easy. It's like playing a video game. Seriously. It's like you're playing video games and you got all of these like video game numbers and statistics, and it's like, it's unreal. But here's what's been the difference. We haven't seen Patrick Mahomes like be great at his stats. And I think that that's been kind of a change, because I think he realized, no, this isn't just about personal accolades. No, this is about team effort. This is about us winning multiple championships. And there was a question about this. Do you think Mahomes has enough potential to win 4 or 5 Super Bowls? In this day and age in the NFL, I say he does. I'd say that he does. Now, it'll be interesting about how Kansas City really favors this because of the fact of, think about it, he's got the most massive contract that's going to be coming up. And I don't know how Kansas City is going to manage this. But at the same time, I mean, the defenses, once they got Tyrann Mathieu, they looked like a completely different secondary. They've looked really good. They've been a type of secondary that's smart, they're situational, and they, you know, and especially with how close these games have been, they've been the type of team that, okay, maybe they do play better behind. And you know, and you look at some of these players, and a lot of them, and here's what's interesting about this whole storyline, because Tampa has a lot more better players, at least from what we were told on Pro Football Focus in their top 15. They've got more Tampa players than you do with Kansas City. A lot of people will be like, well, weigh the odds. I don't know. Outside of those top tier players, Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, Jones, possibly Tyrann Mathieu, outside of those guys, you know, because is there anybody else that could really be an X factor for Kansas City? There may be some. Mecole Hardman, Byron Pringle. There's a bunch of players. You know, and I find it so fascinating about Kansas City this way. But I just feel like in this whole storyline of this Super Bowl, you're getting the guy who's been doing this all for 20 plus years, and he's in his 10th Super Bowl, and you've got the up and coming riser who's already got a Super Bowl in his belt at his young age, and he's only just getting started in building the pathway to championships. Already has one on his belt, hoping to at least get the second consecutive one. It's not easy, folks. It's not easy to go back to back in Super Bowls. It's tough. It's difficult. But you know, this game itself, it's going to determine it. But I'd be very interested to see how all of this will pan out. Coming up next. So, you know, we've been talking a lot about this Stafford Goff trade and the whole Deshaun Watson thing. Well, there's something that was very interesting that I want to specifically break down. And there was a specific team. I did not believe it at first because I thought this was all crazy talk. But I don't know. This could be very interesting. I want to be able to break this down. And then I'm also going to be talking a little bit more about baseball because right now, these people are killing me. These people in the offices for Major League Baseball just absolutely kill me. And I'm just waiting for the season to get started at some point, but hopefully it will. All right. So, by the way, guys, we showed off our merchandise. You guys, we have hats, we have t-shirts, we have hoodies, and we have so much more here on the Spotlight Sports Network that if you go online to Spotlight Sports Gear, and by the way, note to self, starting tomorrow and through the 7th, through Super Bowl weekend, when you go online to Spotlight Sports Gear and you purchase anything up on the Gear's website, all the things I mentioned, you'll get an additional 20% off of all of your purchases. That's all from the 4th of February to the 7th. That's a hell of a deal, guys. And we definitely love your guys' love and support for the network. Why not show off some gear? Why not show us even more love? We really do appreciate it, guys. Go online to the Spotlight Sports Network, sportsgear.com, Shop your merchandise. Get 20% off of all your purchases. That's spotlightsportsgear.com.
But I know that's just in my mind. I know everything is just in my mind. Do you really want to be famous? Do you really want to be a superstar? Do you really want to get dangerous? Do you even know where the groupies are? Bitches out here be-
Welcome to Hammer's house.
So, guys, of course, as you've seen all of those shows here on the Spotlight Sports Network, definitely check them out. The first one, of course, if you guys are diehard Met fans. Also, you guys are diehard Met fans and you guys are diehard Raiders fans, definitely check out the one house that's got you covered in all sports content and entertainment there. That is Hammer's House, all the way straight up from the Bronx. Really do appreciate it. And also, if you guys are diehard Jet fans as well, definitely check out Gangrene David for all the latest rumors, content, highlights, and so much more here on the Spotlight Sports Network. So we've been talking a lot about these quarterback, these quarterback trades. And the first, of course, was the Matthew Stafford to Los Angeles in exchange for 2 first-round picks and for Jared Goff. And a lot of people are saying, well, the Rams, they are getting super aggressive, and it feels like, okay, maybe they might have a talented quarterback. I'll believe it when I see it, because I've been hearing about all of this talent stuff for 12 years with Matthew Stafford, and I have not seen that just yet. Now, a lot of it could either be Stafford or a lot of it could just be Detroit. But in the end, it'll be interesting to see how Stafford does in new colors. And the other thing of it is, too, because you look at Jared Goff, I mean, people could say what they want to about Goff, but I feel like that there was a time where he just started losing his confidence, was not as, he's a great kid. He's a great kid. He seems coachable, and he always seems to stay healthy, but there's some sort of it factor we're just not seeing. And I feel like that was part of the deal. And why, too, that the relationship between him and Sean McVay did not mesh well. So now having that move with Stafford to Los Angeles is going to create a lot of possibilities. And again, they've lost draft picks because of it. Now, Los Angeles, again, it's a superstar type of town. That's just how it is. You either are winning or people are just passing on by you. Don't even care. That's just how the city of Los Angeles is. I mean, think about it. You got celebrities that live there left and right, all the way from Beverly Hills all the way down to Orange County. That's just kind of how the city lives and breathes. And you think about it. You think about some of the talented actors and actresses in movies, and even some of like the top artists that always seems to be up on the top 10 Billboard every year, maybe even every month, but there's consistency there. And when someone's not as consistent and they kind of seem like, okay, they're kind of borderline boring, that's just kind of what changes that. But it's going to be interesting stuff for the Rams. And I think if they make this thing work and it's right, then I think all the credit you got to give to is just Sean McVay, because he's a play caller, and at the same time he's a play designer. I don't think he's along the lines of designing plays like Kyle Shanahan or Andy Reid or some of these other offensive-minded coaches, but he's been good enough where you're winning games. And think about this. You're playing in a difficult division in the NFC West where you're facing Russell Wilson twice a year. You got Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona, who are still developing. And then you got San Francisco and Kyle Shanahan and the Niners. That's what you've got. So if you're McVay and if you're the Rams right now, you're doing whatever it takes to keep up. And I think with that initial move, that's what set the tone. So, with the Watson deal, so I've been talking about this the last couple of days. And Deshaun Watson has been quite the attractive piece. A lot of teams have been inquiring about him. And usually that's what happens. When someone ends up making, big time, when someone makes a big time news headline, stuff like that, then the rumor buzz starts to come out. So Deshaun Watson, we clearly know he's done with Houston, and Houston's imploding. That's no secret. And Deshaun's so dynamic. This is what's kind of interesting about this whole thing. You never get opportunities like this ever in the NFL. In the NBA, it's different. You get young kids who shift left and right, back and forth. And these are all kids of young ages, from like the ages of 19 to 25 to 26. And they don't last long in specific teams, whether they've been drafted there or they were signed there. They don't last that long. They only go for like a certain amount of time, and that's it. And every single one of them shift. But in the NFL, it's different. It is completely different, because normally when you're drafted there, you spend a certain amount of time there. And that's kind of how the whole business works. And until it gets down to the point where you have a Stafford who spent 12 years with Detroit since his rookie season out of Georgia and gets the opportunity to go to the Rams, he's super excited for the new possibility. I've been hearing about this from a lot of different analysts. He's super excited to go there. But when you get situations and you get things like that, that usually is what turns those possibilities up. But never when it's younger. And it's strange. And I think we just witnessed that this year. Because now Goff, he has a new opportunity in Detroit. And it'll be interesting to see how this works. But they needed the draft picks. They needed to have the reload. Because Detroit has been a laughingstock for the last several years. They haven't won a playoff game. They've made playoff appearances, but can't seem to win them. And not to mention, they've never been a dynamic team. Nobody even talks about the Detroit Lions so much. They don't. They kind of fade away bit by bit. You still have diehard fans who are either originally from Detroit, and there still are some, but it's not as dynamic. And so with this Deshaun Watson news, and this is what I've got, and I thought this was complete, this was a complete debacle. And I couldn't even believe it when the first time I heard this. But so there were certain teams, and as I've said it, Jets, Niners, I thought could be very, very good fits for a guy like Watson. But apparently now there are some buzzes happening here in my hometown in Las Vegas that's involving the Raiders. Because apparently, again, John Gruden is under his contract for at least 6 more years. That big old 10-year contract he got. And with him and Mark Davis, they're tight. They're the type, these are the type of businessmen. They want to be dynamic. They want to end up being a big-time team in a different, in a different city, in a different fan base, in a different culture, I mean, this has been a complete culture change for them. They go into a new city, they go into a new field, they go into, a new fan base, and they want to build the absolute best. But right now, as of what I'm hearing, there are some talks about potentially the Raiders engaging in trade talks and communicating with the Houston Texans about Deshaun Watson. And here were some proposals. There was one that completely blew my mind that I said it will never happen. But Colin Cowherd on the Herd ended up saying about the Raiders situation, and he proposed something. He said, give up draft picks, at least 3 of them, 3 or 4. You trade away Carr, and you trade away Darren Waller for Deshaun Watson. I said, wait, what? How? And why? You do realize that for the Raiders, because this is where Raider Nation completely blasted him. And I don't blame them. Listen, there are times where I look at Raider Nation and BL, correct me if I'm wrong, but Raider Nation sometimes is off and on. It's kind of like those love-hate relationships sometimes. There are times where, like, okay, you love Raider Nation because of how die-hard they are of a fan base. A lot of them just love the histories of the Raiders. They love the Raiders when they're winning and so much more. And then you get, the hate portion of it where there's so much of just this, I don't know, like there's so much of this debacle. There's so much of like this irrelevancy or whatnot. And I'm just like, are they serious about this? But when I heard this on the news on Monday, I couldn't believe. I called up my colleague right away, and I said, "Did you hear about this? This is the first time I've ever been mind blown in around the world of sports. I would have never considered this, but you're talking about giving away draft picks, which initially is supposed to be shaping your future. And even in a new city in Las Vegas, this is where I break this down, but." Then you get rid of Derek Carr, which everybody seems to bash Derek Carr every time. He throws for over 4,000 yards. He completes at least, 67% of his throws. And he's throwing more touchdowns than picks. What more do you want out of him? And he seems to be mobile at times. You tell me he can't get the job done, but outside of Tom Brady, I've never seen anybody who's been clutch in fourth quarters. It's interesting to me. And worst of all, you're talking about trading away one of their number one targets, Darren Waller, who's probably one of the most impactful tight ends in the league. I'm going to say this right now. Outside of Travis Kelce, outside of George Kittle, Darren Waller has to be. I'd love to say Hunter Henry, but there have been times where he hasn't really been targeted. But if you think about it, Darren Waller has been the most impactful tight end I've watched in this game. There are you can't even cover him. You can't. You can't cover him. He's hard to even take down, for one. So you're talking about, part of the heart and soul of this offense, trading him away to Houston just for a dynamic player in Deshaun Watson. If you came up with a different proposal with that, I mean, I understand the competition in the AFC West because you're trying to compete with Mahomes and you're trying to compete with Herbert in that division. And by the way, if they nail a striking deal with this, I'll be absolutely mind blown. But at the same time, it just makes the division more and more exciting. And where I can't even wait for the next season to start up because that just means more competition. And think about it. You're talking about Andy Reid, one of the best play callers in football. Brandon Staley, who just got a job with the Chargers, who had the number one defense with the LA Rams. And then you talk about John Gruden, who just holds this, historical stature with the Raiders. It's interesting. I won't even get into this whole Denver Broncos thing because there are some things that they just need to clean up. But it'll be interesting. It'll be Interesting for me for sure, but I just was so mind blown the second I ended up hearing the news about that. I didn't even think this was real, but apparently from sources that I have been following on, and these are reliable sources here, but they're saying this is actually starting to happen. The talks have already began, and it'll be interesting to see how they pull this off. But again, if they do, it'll be crazy. It'll be content for weeks if they pull this off. But we'll wait and see. Time now for the hot press. All right, so fresh out of the hot press here today. So, of course, this has been controversial since we are in Super Bowl week. But apparently there was big time news that we ended up getting up this afternoon where one of the Chiefs barbers ended up testing positive and admitting the haircuts. So the Chiefs had 20 people, including Patrick Mahomes, the star quarterback, other players and staff members who were in line for a haircut on Sunday with a barber who tested positive for COVID-19. Backup center Daniel Kilgore was in the chair when the Chiefs pulled the barber once his COVID-19 test came in. And Kilgore and the barber were both wearing masks, and Kilgore was deemed a close contact. So the Chiefs put Kilgore and they put in wide receiver Demarcus Robinson on the COVID list. So this is scary. This is the kind of thing that, like, this is Super Bowl week. I understand everybody's got to get prepped up and pampered and so much other stuff, but this is kind of crazy. I would have never, ever seen this, but it was smart enough that they pulled the barber out and everything else. And hopefully the results do come back negative and they are ready to play for Kilgore and for Robinson, and hoping that others did not come in close contact with him. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see for the coming days. So, and some news here that's really kind of been shaking people up. But former NFL coach Marty Schottenheimer was moved to a hospice facility. Family, of course, as you mentioned, the son Schottenheimer as well mentioned about this. But Marty Schottenheimer was moved to a hospice facility near his home in Charlotte, North Carolina on Saturday because of complications of Alzheimer's disease. This was listed in a stable condition, and it says, quote unquote, "As a family, we are surrounding him with love." His wife, Pat, said in a statement, also speaking on behalf of the couple's children, Kristen and Brian Schottenheimer, and are soaking up the prayers and support from all those he impacted through his incredible life. In the way he taught us all, we are putting one foot in front of the other, one play at a time. So Schottenheimer, at 77, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2014. So it's been kind of a hard deal for the Schottenheimer family, as they're trying to get as much support and as much help as possible. It's not fun. It's not fun. I've had a couple of people where their family members have Alzheimer's, and it's scary. It's the absolute scariest thing. But thoughts and prayers to the Schottenheimer family, hoping that Marty gets through this well, and he gets the much added support and care as possible as well. I think this is kind of just the right move for the family, but we'll see how it turns out for them in the end. So, latest baseball news talk. So Alex Colomé, one of the closers for Chicago, the Minnesota Twins have been making some interesting moves. So the Minnesota Twins, after signing Nelson Cruz to a 1-year extension deal, the Twins also ended up announcing the signing of Alex Colomé to a deal. So Alex Colomé, it'll be interesting to see how he does here with Minnesota. So he will be deemed the new closer for the Minnesota Twins. And Colomé, at 32 years old, has a career 2.95 ERA with 138 saves across 8 seasons between Tampa, Seattle, and Chicago, and was also named an All-Star in 2016 and finished first in saves in the American League in 2017 with 47 while he was a part of the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, the Tampa Bay Rays have always been a very dynamic pitching organization. It's such an interesting thing. So Colomb, he's going to be headed to Minnesota. It'll be interesting to see how he does from there. But listen, Minnesota, outside of the Timberwolves and the Vikings, Minnesota's really in the Minnesota Wild. The Twins, they look and seem like they're such a dynamic team because they have a lot of pieces. They've got Cruz, they got Donaldson, they've got Max Kepler. They've got a bunch of really good players. But for whatever reason, they can't win a playoff series to save their lives. I mean, for whatever reason, they can't. Not since the Joe Mauer, Jason Kubel, not since those years. But Minnesota has all of these pieces. And let's not forget Mitch Garver. I thought he's a heck of a catcher. Very offensive and is a guy that is very dynamic. But if they don't make this thing right, something just tells me that Minnesota just does not seem... They're like a close but no cigar type of team. So if this thing with Alex Colomb really works out for their closing spot, then I would say Minnesota would be an interesting team in the baseball world. So, and finally, so of course in the college football world, we ended up getting some news and looking at recruiting classes. So once again, for the straight year, Alabama Crimson Tide, they are the number one recruiting class on National Signing Day, and the Ducks move up to number 5. So looking at all of these recruiting classes, so Alabama being at the top, you have Ohio State, Texas A&M, LSU, USC, Oregon. There are so many different recruiting spots, and I've been talking about this about USC because think about it. The recruiting classes in USC, it was sort of disappointing to me because it's like they have so many good players, and who wouldn't want to play in Southern California? You know, and that's kind of the odd part because a lot of them, unlike the NFL, which is very innovative, college football is so one-sided structured, and it always seems to lean more into the South. And I thought this was interesting, but Alabama's recruiting class, number 1 again, it's no surprise. It's no, it doesn't seem new to me. It just seems to be like the same old similar news and stuff like that. But, congratulations to Alabama. We'll see how things turn up. All right, so that was your hot press. All right, so really fast, because just before we end up going into break, and I'm going to end up talking about my predictions of the Super Bowl as well. But Major League Baseball, and it seems like it never fails. It doesn't even matter what year it is. It seems like it never fails. But Major League Baseball and the unions department, they were proposing a 154 game season where they would take a month off. They would basically postpone a month before even starting spring training. They would also be talking about the universal DH, and they would also be talking about expanded playoffs. Now, the unions deal, it got rejected. This is my thing again with Major League Baseball. This always seems to be the thing that pisses me off the most. Because, listen, I've grown up playing and watching the game, and I've never seen this type of debacle get so out of hand between the unions, between the commissioner's office and the writers. This is out of hand, and it's ridiculous, and it needs to stop, because baseball has been America's pastime. They've been that way for centuries. And listen, you're getting newer, younger, stronger, faster talent. Look at what happened with Fernando Tatis Jr. The kid is dynamic. I love watching him in San Diego. Look at some of the, the young breeds that are happening left and right. I mean, Ronald Acuna in Atlanta, Pete Alonso with the Mets. All of these youngsters, they come in and they're so dynamic. It's like they figure it out so quick. But yet, for whatever reason in the baseball world, we just still seem to fail to come to realize what the real issue is at hand. And I said this all last year. Up at just about the late February, early March. That was when I started to get really in tune and really into my podcast show. But this is kind of embarrassing for baseball. This is now becoming an embarrassing show for baseball because we've had the owners, we've had the players bickering back and forth over financial issues. We now have the unions who want to end up shortening the season up because, again, 162 games, yes, it's a long season. But if you think about it, though, too, there's added cushion in between those games. And I've said this last year because once we got the 60 game, it seemed it was so fast that, like, yes, the season went on by. Get the season over with. I understand that. But we could have got at least 80, 90, maybe 100 games. You could have just shed off the remaining 62 because at the very least, it's 50-50 on both teams. You're going to have a lot of developments. But this is what makes it so embarrassing. When they start to bicker and when they start to just go back and forth with this whole thing. Again, the people I've always kept in mind are the people who have been working the concession stands. They've been dying for fans to be there in the ballparks. They can't. Ever since the COVID pandemic, there was no fans in the stands, nothing. And every single one of the concession people, they were doing whatever it took to stay in business. And not to mention, they're taking care of some of these players who are quarantining themselves. They're trying to keep themselves safe and trying to keep them up on the fields. And there were some, and remember, Blake Snell came out and said this. I don't want to end up taking a risk of the season and not get paid more. Well, you're not going to get paid if you're not on the damn field. Isn't that how it works? Every pitch, every at bat, every inning, these players get paid. And it makes zero sense. And it pisses me off. And this is the part where I'm just like, stop destroying the game of baseball. We're not trying to destroy and throw away the tradition. We're trying to make the tradition better. But I'm telling you guys, it's like these offices, these writers, and with all these people, it's like a complete clown circus. The entire carousel continues to roll every day until they actually come up with an idea, until they actually are set in stone and solid. And they rejected it and they said, no, we are going to be starting right on time. We are not going to end up doing this again. And listen, you can love or hate Rob Manfred all you want. Because trust me, I have my words for Rob Manfred. And I have a lot of words for specific people in that front office. It is sickening. It is sickening. And I love baseball, guys. I absolutely love it. My family and I, we live and breathe baseball. That's what it's been since I grew up, since I was a kid. Okay, my pops, he played baseball as a catcher. And the histories behind it, Mike Sweeney was his backup catcher. My biological father, wherever he may be, he was a shortstop. And he was probably one of the best defensive shortstops anybody's seen. Unfortunately, couldn't shut his mouth, couldn't get himself out of problems, and not to mention suffered injuries. But he was looked at by Mike Lieberthal's dad, one of the scouters. Mike Lieberthal was a former Phillies Dodgers catcher. There's histories behind this, folks. And that's how baseball works. That's just how it is. But Major League Baseball, get your heads out of your you-know-whats. Stop fooling around, because the last thing we need is another year of complete and utter confusion. But let the kids play, for God's sakes. Enough of this. This is ridiculous. Get the season started at some point. Get your protocols in order, because it seemed like things were kind of moving by pretty thorough. That's what it seemed like, even in a shortened season. But come up with a better plan, because all it's really just doing is it's just pissing diehard baseball fans like myself. It's just pissing us all off. It's a complete outrage. I mean, I guarantee you, me and Jeff Hammond, aka Hammer, we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. We're diehard baseball fans. One of them played he played in minor league baseball. He knows the business. He knows the gig, all of that. And it's so absurd. It's become so political, and it just drives me nuts. But it's something that I've really wanted to get off my chest with all of that, because I am just to the point where I am so sick of this, and I could not stress this enough. All right, coming up next, guys. So for my best for last in the last couple of minutes here on the back end of the hour, I'm going to be talking more about the Super Bowl. I'm going to have my score prediction. And because right now, it just seems like the bet line is changing over and over again. So I'm going to have a solid bet. And this is going to be very interesting. I think you guys are going to like it. So don't go anywhere. Snake Sports Talk Show. We're going to be right back in a few.
Once a Raider, bruh, always a Raider, bruh. Shit simple as that. You look silver and black. Lot of bread invested in that O-line. Car insurance cost the arm and the leg to reach that goal line. It's go time.
Welcome to the My City, My Game pod show featuring Raider J77, your place for all things Raiders and all things Trailblazers. Brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Now let's go.
Well, first and foremost, guys, I really do appreciate you guys coming on to tonight's live stream. We really do appreciate it. All of you guys sharing your love and support for the network and, of course, for the show, the Snake Sports Talk Show. We really do appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for being with us here tonight. And if you haven't done so already, like, subscribe, follow, and hit the bell button for all latest notifications to keep you guys up to date on future and past shows. Also catch me on the live streams as well for play-by-play. I am going to be doing the play-by-play commentary. I am so blessed to be doing it for Super Bowl 55. And also, too, we're going to have a lot of discussions for the Spotlight Sports Network as well, because there may be something different up in the works coming up. You guys do not want to end up missing that. And, of course, for merchandises, if you guys love hats, T-shirts, hoodies, and so much more, starting tomorrow, the 4th, all the way through the 7th of this month. If you go online to www.spotlightsportsgear.com, shop online, you will be getting additional 20% off of all of your purchases. And that's on everything on the spotlightsportsgear.com. Definitely shop it. Definitely check it out and rep some gear today. So my best for last. So of course it's come to this point, and I will also be speaking about this with the rest of our colleagues here on the network as we'll be getting geared up for Super Bowl weekend. But this is, like I said, it's been such an interesting storyline. It's been quite the interesting storyline. And what better way really to explain about this game than having at least a little bit of a storytelling? You guys ever seen Pirates of the Caribbean? Or have you guys at least seen some of those pirate movies? Well, I'm actually kind of glad I got just this tuned in for you guys. So this is kind of going to be my storytelling from here. But I'm going to go back into old books because this is a chapter we're writing in football history. Super Bowl 55 between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is going to be fun. This is really going to be fun. But here we go. So I'm going to have my score prediction, and I wish I could be out there in Tampa, out there in the sun. Like I said, I had a Super Bowl 54 prediction. I thought it was fun being out there in Miami. But here we are this year in Tampa. So here we go. So looking at the old books. So we've got histories in the making. In Super Bowl 55, it's the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Boy, does that Patrick Mahomes, isn't he something special, and isn't he great? He's a young rising star, and he's got all of his cohorts. Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Chris Jones, Tyrann Mathieu, and led at the helm with Andy Reid. Kansas City looks to be the type of team that's going to be interesting to watch. But they are stopped in their tracks by one boat, the ship that has sailed for 20 years. That is Tom Brady. But only this time, it is not the New England Patriots. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And with all the shipmates that Tom Brady has, with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Levante David, Devin White, all at the helm with Bruce Arians. What a story to tell, as both have clashed and both are seeking to write their own stories in this very book of football histories. Will it be the man himself, the history, the legend in Tom Brady, who walks away in his home sea? Or will it be the rising star of Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs? It's a story well to write. But as the fight and the clash rolls on, and as the cannons begin to shoot, that is where the battle begins. In Tampa Bay, Super Bowl 55. Kansas City and Tampa Bay. So, of course, folks, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you guys are going to love exactly the pick. So, this has been a bet line. The bet line is at 3. They're telling me at Vegas it's going to be a close game. It's going to be one of those scenarios where you got the Chiefs offense and you've got the Buccaneers defense as well. Both of them are going to be very, very dynamic. By the way, a few different stories and a different takeaway. Steve Spagnuolo, who was the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants at the time, has had success against Tom Brady in the past. Then you also have the dynamics of Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator, and what he's done with this defense. This has been such a dynamic defense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And looking at all of their stats, because this is a team that's only allowed 85 yards on the run. So the run game is going to be very crucial. If you can't get Clyde Edwards-Helaire to run the ball or Le'Veon Bell, that just means it's going to be all airs from here. The cannons are going to be shot. That's going to be with both these quarterbacks. So my take on this, I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs at -3. Somewhere just in this game alone, because it's going to be a back and forth battle. Defenses and offenses are going to be tested. It's a Super Bowl for a reason. But I actually really do like this matchup per se, because it's an old written story from 20 years ago with Tom Brady in his 10th Super Bowl, and it's new stories being written for Patrick Mahomes and for Kansas City. I like this. I like this type of clash. I like this type of setup. So I think in the end, can I get this music again? I like this music. So, all right. So, of course, as I mentioned before, Kansas City and Tampa Bay. Clashes of offense. Who's going to have the better offense? Who's going to have the better defense? But at the same time, whose coaching is going to be better? You do have Andy Reid at the helm, and you've got Bruce Arians. Now, it will be difficult for both ends because of how Patrick Mahomes is going to play, the run game, and then not to mention the defensive stops, because the defense in Tampa seems to be red hot, and so does Kansas City's. I mean, Kansas City blew the tires on Buffalo. And Tampa, they were prepared against Green Bay. There were a couple of different takeaways, but this is kind of an interesting setting. But I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs. And my final score prediction for Super Bowl 55, who I believe are going to be your Super Bowl champions for back-to-back years. Kansas City wins this game 27-24. It'll be a great game, but I do think that the story that's going to be written is if Patrick Mahomes wins this, the pathway seems to be set for multiple Super Bowls. And if he wins it, he'll have his second on his belt, and he'll already be talked about as one of the most dynamic quarterbacks ever in NFL history. And you're talking about a guy who's been doing this for 20 years, Tom Brady. He'll be seeking vengeance, and he'll be seeking a different storyline, being with a different team, and etching on his 7th Super Bowl victory in his career. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out. But I feel like Kansas City may be the team that comes away with it 27-24. It's going to be an exciting game. I can't wait for this on Sunday. So there you have it, guys. I'm going with Kansas City in Super Bowl 55. Again, you couldn't even put a better storyline than this. I think it's really dynamic for both of these teams and how this storyline is really set up. But I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be so much fun. So, alrighty, guys, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Really do appreciate you guys stopping on by, and we will see you guys on this show next week, next Monday. I will have some more special guests on as well. You guys do not want to end up missing that. And I hope all of you guys stay safe and stay healthy. Have a great night. Enjoy Super Bowl weekend, because this is it, folks. This is where the end of the road always hits in the NFL season. We've made it to this point. Super Bowl 55 in Tampa Bay. Kansas City Chiefs, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's going to be a fun Super Bowl. Hope you guys enjoy it this weekend. I will definitely be there commentating live play-by-play. And like I said, it's going to be a fun Super Bowl. Have a great night, guys. Stay safe, and we will see you guys soon.